Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, 5 Tips in 20 Minutes, Microsoft Excel, presented by our amazing expert instructor here at New Horizons, Ed McCrae. My name is Mariela Salinas, and I will be assisting in moderating our session today. We are in Zoom for today's webinar, and we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you in an email after the session. We do encourage participation throughout the webinar, so please use that chat or our Q&A option for our short Q&A after the presentation. Educate 360 is so excited to present this webinar today. So without further ado, I will hand it over to you, Ed.
All right. Hello, everyone. And again, welcome to our webinar, 5 Tips in 20 Minutes, Microsoft Excel. No better way to spend 20 minutes than learn some things in Excel. All right. That might be an exaggeration, but I'm sticking with it. All right. During this webinar, we are going to talk about a couple of things here. We're going to take a look at tables and how we can convert worksheet data to tables. We'll talk about how we can add functions into tables. We'll look at how we can add some formatting and things like that in place, probably within the context of tables as well. And we will take a look at some different keyboard shortcuts and functions that we can use with our data. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and pull up our Excel worksheet that we will be using here. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see the content a little bit better. And the first thing that I want to do here is turn this list into a table. So this is just a regular continuous range of data that I've got sitting here. And I want to turn it into a table. What are some of the advantages of turning it into a table? I'm glad you asked me that. I'm going to tell you. One advantage is from a formatting perspective, it is going to look like a more of a continuous range without me having to manually do the formatting. We'll also get some different cool formatting options, such as having alternate colors of rows and columns and having filters and just other things like that that are available in the table options. A table is also going to have some different data management or data analysis tools built into it. As I said, filters, the ability to remove duplicates, the ability to do subtotals, right, will automatically be built into the construct of the table. Also, a table is going to give us a quicker, more efficient formula structure that we can use that's a little bit more akin to a calculated column as opposed to a cell-based formula, right? We'll take a look at that in our second topic. And then finally, turning a list into a table is going to allow you to treat that list or that table independently from the rest of the worksheet or even the workbook. And this is especially true when it comes to wanting to export that data or import that data into another place. So, for example, if I were working in a SharePoint list or environment and I wanted to create a list based off of an Excel workbook, I have to have tables in the workbook in order to do that, right? If I'm importing data into Power BI, right, having it in a table format can help. If I am using Power Pivot, right, and I want to move that data into a Power Pivot data model, right, it has to be in a table format. And anytime I import data into Excel, let's say I'm using Power Query to pull data into Excel, it's going to come in a table format, right? So tables really are the order of the day, and they're very easy to create. So let's create a table here real quick. Let me actually fix the formatting of this column here real quick, turn it into a date. There we go. And so to create a table, all I have to do is just select or just have my mouse clicked inside of the table. I don't have to hit Control A or anything to select things. Just have to be inside of the table, inside of the list rather, it has to be continuous range. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the Insert tab in the ribbon. And over here on the left, I'm going to see the option for table, right? So let's give that a click. Okay, it's going to ask me where the data is in my table, and it should automatically be grabbing that entire continuous range, right? I see the marching ants strolling around this range here, so that's good. I do want to make sure that it has the option turned on here that says my table has headers, so that is turned on. So let's go ahead and click OK. And voila, we are now inside of a table, right? So just that easy. Click inside of a continuous range, go to the Insert tab, choose Table, and there we go. Okay. Now let's look at some of the things here that we can do within our table in regards to some of the tools that are available and in regards to some of the formatting options that are available here. When I'm clicked in the table, of course, I'm going to get a contextual tab in my ribbon for table design. And so I see that showing up right up here, table design. This is great. And I have all these different commands and things inside of table design. Firstly, I can give my table a name. This is important, right? Because when I create a table, it automatically creates a named range associated with that whole table. So like if I come over here and go to my name box, I see how table one is sitting right here. See that, right? So that's the named range associated with this table. So essentially, by changing the name here, I could change the named range. So if I was referencing this in some kind of function or formula, right, I could use that name. So let's just go ahead and name this, I don't know, uh, sales data. All right. No names, no special, no spaces, rather, no special characters. There we go. Okay. Now in table design here, I have the option to resize my table. This is simply for if when we initially created the table, we did not include the correct data. So if I noticed that maybe there were some extra columns that I did not mean to include, or maybe some data that I meant to include that I excluded, I could say resize table, and it'll basically just give me the option to come out here and re-highlight what the dimensions or type in what the dimensions of my table ought to be. I don't need to do that if I'm just adding extra columns or rows. For example, if I came over here and wanted to add a column called, I don't know, sales tax, right? Or if I wanted to add a column over here called commission, right? You can see that as I type those columns in, it automatically includes them as a part of the table, right? We can tell that because the formatting carries over, right? So it pulls those in. The same thing would be true with the rows. If I were to come down here and add in a new row at the bottom, right? It would automatically include that as a part of the table. Okay. All right. Let's look at some of the other things that are here very quickly. I could summarize this with a pivot table. It gives me that options here. We're not going to get into pivot tables here at this time. I could remove duplicates, right? And so that's a feature that's actually available in the data tab. It makes it available right here as well. Um, we'll look at that maybe a little bit later. If I wanted to convert this to a range, just a regular range of cells, I could do so. I don't really know why you'd want to do that. I guess if just for some reason you didn't want it to be a table any longer, you could convert to range and it'll just be a normal range of cells, right? So that's there. One of the cool things we can do that I do want to show you is we can use slicers with tables. And slicers are visual filters, right? Let's say I wanted to be able to filter all my data by product or by region or by, whatever I want. I could choose Insert Slicer, and it's going to show me all of my fields here, and I could go on ahead and choose the field I want or fields I want for a slicer. So let's go ahead and filter this by the sales rep and by the product line. All right, so I'm going to insert two slicers. Click OK. Here are my slicers, and I'm just going to drag these over here. Make a nice little filter area over here on the side. All right, isn't that lovely? That's fantastic. All right, and I could use this to filter. So if I click on any of these folks, any of these sales reps here, right, it is filtering my data for the sales rep. That is great. If I've clicked on the product line, it is filtering for the specific product line. Nice and easy, right? I could hold control and grab, a couple of different things, right? So this is a nice, quick, easy way to filter my data. This is especially useful if other users are going to be manipulating this data, right? we don't really want them having to come up here to these drop downs. This can look kind of complex and complicated, right, for filtering. We don't want them necessarily having to do that. So using these slicers can be very helpful. Okay. All right, this is fantastic. Now I have a couple of ways I can format these slicers. If I click on the slicer, I get a slicer tab here. And I can put a color in here, or I can split this up into columns, right, and format it that way, right? So whatever it is that I want to do there in regards to the look and feel, I can do. All right, this is good. All right, so all that's happening there, and this of course is impacting my table. All right, we have some other options in here. We see if this were an external table, remember I told you whenever I import data in, it is going to come in a table format. If that were the case, all these little buttons here would be lit up and I could choose to like refresh this data or unlink it or what have you. All right, so that is how we create a table here. All right, so that's our first tip, right? Creating tables, use tables, they're going to make life a lot easier. Okay. All right, tip number 2 is the quick use of formatting, especially once we have tables in place, right? I can very easily come over here and I'm going to center my headers because it's annoying my soul that they're not. I can come over here and I can do things such as turn the header row off or on, right? I can turn on a total row, right? Let's look at that. If I check total row, it now gives me this row down at the bottom here, and I can come in here and I can put different formulas in place. It's going to do a sum in the last column by default, but I can change that. I could say, hey, I want to do a average. Of course, it's going to give me a div 0 because I don't have anything in there. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a sum, right? Could do a sum over here, right? Whatever calculations I want, I can do. Let's have it do a count over here. Um, and let's have it do a sum right here, right? So whatever calculations I want to do, I can easily do. And I can see that it allows me to quickly get that calculation there without having to do a manual formula. I also want you to notice, and this is a side note, that when I'm in the table and I start scrolling down, notice that the column headings have been replaced by the field headings from my table, right? So this is great. This is allowing me to keep my field headings in place without having to do freeze panes or any of those other things that we would typically need to do. I have the ability here to have banded rows, right? This alternating colors of rows. Banded columns, this is alternating colors of columns. I can also choose to accentuate the first column or the last column. Can turn the filter buttons on or off. I'm going to turn it off since I'm using slicers more so for filtering here. And then of course I can come over here and I can apply any of these themes that I want. This is great. We'll go with the yellow right here. All right, this is cool. All right, so very easy to format a table. So using a table is going to make life easier in regards to the things we saw in terms of structure, and then also in regards to formatting our data. I've seen people sit for hours trying to get alternating colors of rows and then pull their hair out, right? Well, just use a table and then you can keep your hairline in place. All right. Okay, let's look at the third tip here, which is going to be using formulas inside of our tables, right? Our tables are going to give us a more streamlined formula structure that is more akin to a calculated column. For example, right, I have these totals here. Let's just go ahead and get these formatted as accounting. And I want to calculate the sales tax, right? Let's say we have I don't know, let's say a 6% sales tax. And I want to calculate the sales tax here, right? I'm going to do my formula like I normally would. I'm going to say equals. Now, typically, I would click on this cell and it would insert the cell reference, which is cell K2, into my formula. But we'll see when I click on the cell, it is not doing that. It is instead putting the field, right? So it's putting total sale there, right? Let's continue our formula. Let's just say go ahead and do times 6%. Watch what happens when I hit enter. Boom, right? It automatically fills that down this entire column, right? This is fantastic. So there was nothing that I needed to do. I just do the formula once, fills it all the way through. Even if I change this, right? Let's say I call this total with tax instead, right? Total with tax. And I wanted to change the formula to total sale times 1.06. Boom, it automatically updates all the way through, right? So this is making life a lot easier. Let's do something more complex here with the commission, right? I'm going to grab these sales reps real quick. Let's just copy them and let's just add a new sheet here. We'll call it sales rep info. And let's drop our sales reps in here real quick. I'm going to get rid of the duplicates. And let's create another table here. We'll call this sales rep and we'll call this commission rate. And let's just put some commission rates, some percentages in here. Let's format this as a percent real quick. And let's just put some percentages in here. We'll just be very liberal for some of our folks here and a little bit more stingy with some others, right? Everybody eats, just not the same amount. All right, so I have all of these things in here. And let's just go ahead. I'm not going to take the time to turn this into a table. Let's just do actually, yes, I am. Let's go ahead and turn this into a table real quick. Cool. And we'll call this sales rep info. All right, very good. Now, I'm going to do a VLOOKUP or an XLOOKUP inside of this table here to calculate the commission, right? Let's just pull in the correct commission rate first of all. So I'm going to say equals VLOOKUP. And let's go ahead and let's look for the sales rep. Let's look inside of our sales rep info table. Let's pull in the second column. Let's get an exact match. Cool. It's working, right? So again, even with a complex formula, it works, right? Let's go ahead and change this now to actually calculate the commission based on that. Let's multiply this by the total sale. And it works. Beautiful. All right. So we have a nice streamlined formula structure, whether we're doing a simple formula or a more complex formula like so. Right? Makes life a lot easier. All right, this is good. Let's look at a couple of more things here real quick, and then we will open up the floor for questions. Let's look at some ways that we can apply some quick formatting to this data using conditional formatting. All right, let's go in here and let's apply a conditional format to this total sale column. Oh, notice that my totals are working down at the bottom here. That's cool. I'm going to go to conditional formatting, and we have several different kinds we can do. I can do a highlight rule. I can do a top bottom, and highlight would be like greater than, less than. I can do a top or bottom percentage or number of items. I can do data bars, color scales, or icon sets. Right? So for this first example, let's do a quick data bar. We'll use our yellow theme here. And there we go. It is filling these cells quickly to a certain extent with a color based on the value in the cell. Right? This is good. All right, I'm going to add a column in here. And let's call this sale level. Or better yet, let's call this goal. sales goal. And I ultimately want to do an icon set here where let's say our goal for sales is 15,000. So if it's 15,000 or above, I want it to put a check mark. We've met our goal. If it's between 10 and 15,000, we'll have it put like an and sign. We're almost there. And if it's under 10,000, we'll have it put a red flag. Okay. Now, the tip here and the trick to this is typically if I'm doing that, the icon would show up in the cell with the value. I want just the icon. I don't want the value, right? Let's move these guys out the way. I don't want the value. So here's what I'm going to do to start. I'm going to link these two columns together. So I'm going to say equals. I'm going to click on my total sale column and hit enter, right? And it links those together. Now it's also pulling in the formatting, which I don't really want. We'll probably get rid of that in a moment, okay? But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this column. And let's go ahead and clear that formatting out that we have. Clear rules from selected cells. Cool. And let's do a icon set. I'm going to say more rules here. All right. And I am doing an icon set. I'm going to go ahead and choose my icon. So we'll do a green check. We'll do our kind of midway symbol, and we will do our red flag. And let's go ahead and set our breaking points in place. We'll do 15,000 for this first one, and then 10,000 for our intermediate goal. Okay. 10,000, not 10 million. And then here's the thing. I'm going to check this box that says show icon only. I don't need the value. I just want the icon. Click OK. And there we go. Right. I now have a column in place that is just going to show me these icons. Now, if I wanted people to know what these mean, I'd have to build like a legend or something like that off to the side. There's no preset way to do that. We'd have to manually do that, right? But let's assume that everyone understands what these symbols represent. We are in good shape. All right. For our last tip, let's just look at a couple of quick shortcuts that you've seen me using here. If you've been wondering how I've been selecting things so quickly, shortcut number one, if I want to quickly select an entire row or column of data, I can use the keyboard shortcut of Control Shift and my arrow key in whatever direction, okay? So for example, let's say I want to grab this whole header row. I can click at the beginning, Control Shift, tap my right arrow, and there we go. It's going to go ahead and grab all of those for me. All right. Let's say I wanted to get this whole total with tax column, right? Control Shift, tap my down arrow. There we go. It's highlighting that whole column for me, like so. So that's one. Control Shift and your arrow keys to select a continuous range. You've also seen me quickly get back to the beginning of my spreadsheet. I've been doing that using Control Home. So if I hold Control, tap my Home key. Oops, not that one. Hold Control, tap my Home key on my keyboard. There we go. Brings me to the beginning, right? So let's say I'm way over here somewhere. Want to quickly get back to the beginning. Control Home. And there we go. And then the last one that you've seen me use is to quickly select the whole range. I just do click inside of the range and I do Control A. Right? And that's the quick shortcut for select all. All right. So a couple of nice quick shortcuts that you can use for selecting your data. All right, my friends. These have been some different tips and tricks here concerning Excel. I am going to turn things back over to Mariella at this time, and let's see if we have any questions.
Absolutely, Ed. I will go ahead and give our audience a minute or two to throw any last minute questions in. If they would like to throw any questions at all, we will absolutely answer them. I did see one come through about asking about past training, so you can absolutely visit our New Horizons YouTube channel, and you can find past trainings, additional trainings there, and then have fun and take a peek. But we had a couple other comments coming in, and I believe that should be it for us today. Got some great tips. Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. Here, let me go find that YouTube channel and we can hang back here for another. I also went ahead and dropped in some more information on Microsoft Excel, so you can absolutely take a peek at that if you want to learn a little bit more. Awesome. Thank you all so much for your fantastic feedback. It looks like that'll be it for us today. And here, let me go ahead and drop that YouTube link right in the chat for you all so you can take a peek whenever you get a chance. Alrighty, everyone. Thanks again for joining us. And Thanks to you, Ed, for all your amazing insight. And again, if you need any more information on that, do not be afraid to visit us at newhorizons.com or click that link. Thanks again, everyone. Hopefully, we'll see you all very soon in the classroom. Bye for now.